Amsterdam, 1637. A sailor's jailed for eating an onion. It wasn't an onion, it was a tulip bulb. Worth more than a mansion. People bought bulbs to resell for profit. Not the flowers, just rights to future flowers. Confused? Join boring finance guy for a dive into Tulip Mania, one of the earliest, best documented speculative bubbles. The Dutch Golden Age. Let's step back to the early 17th century, a time when the Netherlands stood as the unrivaled titan of global commerce. The Dutch Republic, newly independent from Spanish rule after decades of rebellion, had transformed into an economic powerhouse. Its dominance stemmed from the Dutch East India Company, the world's first multinational corporation, which controlled lucrative trade routes spanning Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Amsterdam emerged as the financial capital of Europe, home to the first modern stock exchange and a sophisticated banking system that fueled innovation and wealth. The Netherlands boasted the highest per capita income in the world, outstripping even England and France, with its merchant fleet carrying more tonnage than all of Europe's combined. This was the Dutch Golden Age, an era of unparalleled prosperity, scientific advancement, and cultural brilliance, where painters like Rembrandt and Vermeer captured the opulence of a society flush with capital. The upper echelons of Dutch society, particularly the merchant elite and regents, reveled in their newfound wealth. These urban patricians, often residing in grand canal houses in Amsterdam or Haarlem, displayed their status through lavish art collections, exotic goods, and meticulously designed gardens. A burgeoning middle class enriched by trade and industry began to emulate this lifestyle, creating a culture of conspicuous consumption. Into this vibrant scene arrived the tulip, a flower that would ignite a financial frenzy. Tulips originated in the rugged mountains of Central Asia, particularly in regions like modern-day Turkey, Iran, and Kazakhstan. They were cultivated in the Ottoman Empire, where their vivid colors and elegant shapes made them prized ornaments in imperial gardens. In the late 16th century, tulips reached the Netherlands through diplomatic and commercial channels, notably via Carolus Clusius, a Flemish botanist who planted them in the Leiden University's horticultural garden. Clusius's work sparked fascination among the Dutch elite, who saw tulips as exotic rarities. By the early 17th century, tulips had become the iPhone of their day, not merely a flower but a coveted status symbol. Owning rare varieties, especially the broken tulips with striking multicolored patterns caused by a mosaic virus, signaled wealth, taste, and social prestige. These bulbs were displayed in gardens or depicted in still-life paintings, their scarcity driving demand among the affluent and aspirational alike. Yet how did this botanical treasure morph into a financial catastrophe? Let's explore. The Tulip Craze. By 1634, tulips had transcended their role as mere garden ornaments to become the Dutch Republic's hottest investment commodity. No longer just flowers, they were speculative gold, with demand for rare bulbs, particularly the coveted Semper Augustus, reaching feverish heights. This single variety, famed for its red and white marble petals caused by a mosaic virus, was the crown jewel of the market, with one bulb reportedly fetching up to 5,500 florins, an astronomical sum equivalent to a luxurious Amsterdam canal house, 10 years' wages for a skilled artisan earning 150 florins annually, or enough to buy 4 tons of butter in a time when a single ton cost around 100 florins. The tulip market had morphed into a speculative whirlwind, driven not by the physical flowers, but by a novel financial instrument, futures contracts. These contracts, known as windhandel or wind trade in Dutch, allowed buyers to purchase bulbs still in the ground, promising payment upon harvest months later. This innovation, born in the taverns and informal exchanges of Haarlem and Amsterdam, fueled a speculative boom unlike anything the world had seen. Traders ranging from wealthy merchants to speculative artisans and even apocryphal chimney sweeps flocked to the market, lured by tales of overnight fortunes. The Amsterdam Bourse, already a hub for trading shares in the Dutch East India Company, saw tulip contracts change hands at dizzying speeds, often without a single bulb being physically exchanged. By 1636, trading had shifted to year-round exchanges in tavern-based colleges, where groups of speculators bid on contracts, driving prices ever higher. For instance, a single Viceroy bulb was recorded as being traded for goods worth 2,500 florins, including 2 lasts of wheat, 4 lasts of rye, 4 fat oxen, and a silver goblet, showcasing the absurdity of the valuations. The frenzy was underpinned by the Dutch Republic's economic sophistication and surplus wealth. The prosperity of the Golden Age, with its global trade networks and burgeoning middle class, created a pool of disposable income ripe for speculation. Tulips, especially the rare broken varieties, were not just botanical marvels, but symbols of status and potential profit, their scarcity exacerbated by the slow propagation of bulbs, which could take 7 to 12 years from seed or 1 to 2 years from offsets. This scarcity drove a feedback loop of demand, where the promise of future profits pushed prices to unsustainable levels. Social dynamics amplified the craze. Tavern gatherings fostered a herd mentality, with stories of commoners turning into overnight millionaires spreading like wildfire. Yet, the market's foundation was precarious. Most trades were based on credit and trust, with little regulation or oversight. Buyers often committed to prices they could not afford, betting on reselling contracts at a profit before delivery. This house of cards, built on promises rather than tangible assets, teetered on the edge of collapse, setting the stage for a dramatic reckoning. The crash of 1637. By February 1637, the tulip market, once a roaring engine of speculative frenzy, slammed into an unyielding wall. The dizzying ascent of bulb prices, driven by futures contracts and unchecked optimism, came to an abrupt halt as doubts about the sustainability of skyrocketing prices began to surface. A pivotal trigger was a failed auction in Haarlem, where bidders, suddenly wary of overpaying for bulbs with uncertain future value, refused to meet sellers' exorbitant demands, sparking panic across trading circles. This hesitation rippled through the tavern-based trading colleges in Haarlem, Amsterdam, and Utrecht, where buyers, who had eagerly bid thousands of florins for bulbs still buried in the ground, began to vanish, unwilling to commit to contracts they could no longer afford or justify. Many refused to honor their contracts, unwilling or unable to pay exorbitant sums, sometimes as high as 5,000 florins for a single bulb, equivalent to a grand Amsterdam canal house, or 12 years' wages for a skilled artisan earning 150 florins annually, for flowers they had never physically seen. This sudden withdrawal shattered the fragile trust underpinning the market, as speculators realized the windhandel, wind trade contracts were little more than promises built on air. Overnight, prices plummeted. A bulb worth a fortune one day became nearly worthless the next, with some rare varieties like the Semper Augustus dropping from thousands of florins to mere fractions of their peak value. The collapse was not just a financial shock, but a social upheaval. The Dutch Republic's economy, heavily reliant on credit and reputation, reeled as traders defaulted en masse. Unlike modern markets with central banks or government bailouts, the 17th century Netherlands had no mechanisms to stabilize the chaos. The Dutch courts, faced with a flood of disputes over unpaid tulip contracts, often refused to enforce these speculative agreements, viewing them as akin to gambling debts, which were legally dubious under Dutch law. In Haarlem, for instance, local authorities declared many futures contracts void, leaving sellers holding worthless promises and buyers escaping their obligations. This judicial reluctance exacerbated the crisis, as it undermined the trust-based system that had fueled the tulip trade, leaving traders, from wealthy merchants to overzealous artisans, stranded with losses and shattered reputations. Yet here's the surprising twist. The economic fallout was far less catastrophic than the legend of Tulip Mania suggests. The story of Tulip Mania, as we know it, comes from an 1841 book, Extraordinary Popular Delusions in the Madness of Crowds, by Charles Mackay, who painted it as a nation gone mad. He spun tales of entire town bankrupted by tulips. The story of sailor jailed for eating tulip bulb is most likely untrue. Modern research, notably by historian Anne Golgar, reveals no evidence of widespread bankruptcies or a national economic collapse. The tulip trade, while frenzied, was largely confined to a small circle of affluent merchants, florists, and speculative middle-class investors in a few cities. not the entire Dutch population. The broader economy, buoyed by the Dutch Republic's robust trade networks in industries like shipping and textiles, remained largely unscathed. For example, Amsterdam's shipping records from 1637 show no significant disruption, and tax revenues held steady. Instead, the real damage was social and psychological. Broken business relationships, eroded trust among traders, and a wave of public shame as Calvinist moralists decried the greed that had gripped the market. Pamphlets circulated, lambasting speculators for their folly, further cementing the narrative of a nation gone mad. Why did it happen? Tulip Mania was fueled by three big factors. First, the Dutch Golden Age's staggering wealth provided a flood of easy money. The Netherlands, flush with profits from global trade via the Dutch East India Company and its dominance in industries like shipping and textiles, had created a prosperous society with a burgeoning middle class and merchant elite. By 1634, the Dutch Republic's per capita income was the highest in Europe, with Amsterdam's merchants and artisans sitting on surplus capital, cash they were eager to gamble on the next big thing, tulips. This liquidity, untethered to productive investments, poured into speculative bulb trading, inflating prices to dizzying heights. Second, the introduction of futures contracts, known as windhandel or wind trade, supercharged the market. These innovative financial instruments, pioneered in the informal trading colleges of taverns in Haarlem and Amsterdam, allowed speculators to bet on the future price of tulip bulbs without ever owning them. Unlike traditional sales, where physical bulbs changed hands, futures contracts enabled traders to buy bulbs still in the ground, promising payment at harvest time, often months away. This system, loosely regulated and based on credit, lowered the barrier to entry, letting everyone from wealthy florists to opportunistic weavers join the speculation. By 1636, contracts for rare bulbs like the Semper Augustus were traded multiple times a day, each transaction pushing prices higher without requiring physical delivery. This financial innovation, while groundbreaking, created a speculative bubble detached from the actual supply of bulbs, which took 7 to 12 years to grow from seed or 1 to 2 years from offsets, making rare varieties inherently scarce. Third, a potent herd mentality gripped the Dutch, turning tulip trading into a social phenomenon. As stories of overnight fortunes spread, tales of artisans buying bulbs for a few florins and selling them for thousands, more people piled in, driven by the fear of missing out. In the smoky taverns of Utrecht and Leiden, traders swapped exaggerated claims of profits, creating a feedback loop of excitement and greed. This wasn't unique to the 17th century. It's the same psychology we saw in the cryptocurrency boom of 2021, where everyone from college students to retirees rushed to buy Bitcoin at its peak. The Dutch, surrounded by peers profiting from tulip trades, felt it was a safe bet, even as prices for a single bulb reached 5,000 florins, equivalent to a luxurious canal house or 15 years' wages for a skilled worker, earning 150 florins annually. Social pressure and the illusion of universal success blinded speculators to the risks, amplifying the mania. But the story doesn't end there. The tulip market's lack of regulation and reliance on trust-based trading set the stage for disaster. Unlike the Amsterdam Bourse, which had formal rules for trading company shares, the tulip trade operated in a gray zone, with no central authority to enforce contracts or verify bulb quality. Many deals were sealed with a handshake or a scribbled note, relying on the reputation of traders in a credit-driven economy. This fragility meant that when doubts crept in, there was no mechanism to stabilize the market. Speculators, often over-leveraged, committed to prices they couldn't afford, betting on reselling contracts at a profit before delivery. The absence of oversight allowed the market to spiral unchecked, much like a runaway train hurtling toward a cliff. Adding fuel to the fire, the cultural backdrop of the Dutch Golden Age, where conspicuous consumption and status symbols like rare tulips were celebrated, encouraged reckless speculation. This wasn't just about flowers. It was a collision of human psychology, financial innovation, and an overheated economy gone wild. Legacy of Tulip Mania. Tulip Mania, though confined to a small circle of Dutch speculators in the 1630s, Left in mark on financial history, its story enduring as a powerful metaphor for speculative excess. The frenzy, driven by the trading of tulip bulbs, assets with no fundamental value, as they generated no income or practical utility beyond their aesthetic appeal, transformed the humble flower into a cultural icon. Unlike stocks or land, which derive worth from dividends or productivity, tulips were prized solely for their rarity and beauty. This absence of intrinsic value fueled a bubble that, when it burst in February 1637, exposed the dangers of speculative markets detached from economic reality. The emotional forces behind Tulip Mania, greed, envy, and fear of missing out, reveal a timeless truth about human psychology, unchanged across centuries. In the 1630s, tavern traders in Haarlem and Amsterdam chased tales of artisans turning bulbs worth a few florins into thousands, a frenzy mirrored in modern bubbles like the 2008 housing crisis. These emotions, rooted in the human desire for quick wealth and social validation, drove Dutch speculators to bet on futures contracts, among the earliest recorded in history. These windhandel contracts, allowing bets on future bulb prices without ownership, prefigured modern futures markets but lacked regulation, amplifying risk. The same impulses fuel today's investors chasing meme stocks or NFTs, ignoring fundamental value for the promise of profit. Tulip Mania's lesson is clear. When markets are driven by emotion rather than intrinsic worth, collapse is inevitable. The ripple effects of Tulip Mania extended beyond the Netherlands, reshaping European perceptions of speculative markets. The crash, triggered by a failed Haarlem auction and mass contract defaults, eroded trust in credit-based trading, prompting merchants across Europe to question the reliability of futures-like instruments. While the economic impact was limited, historian Anne Golgar notes no widespread bankruptcies, with Amsterdam's 1637 trade records showing stability. The social fallout was profound, straining business relationships and fueling moral debates. This shockwave influenced the development of more structured financial systems, as seen in the Amsterdam Bourse's later regulations. Today, Tulip Mania serves as a cautionary tale for investors. Markets disconnected from fundamental value, like the dot-com bubble or recent crypto crashes, risk similar fates. It underscores the need for skepticism, regulation, and a focus on intrinsic worth. Lessons echoed in global finance, where interconnected markets amplify the fallout of speculative excess. Tulip Mania remains a stark reminder that human nature, unchecked, can turn even a flower into a financial catastrophe.